Within Mecklenburg County, between January 2020 and December of 2022, so a 3-year time period, we identified 170 unique cases of trafficking.
Wow. That's a lot.
Staggering.
It is.
It's staggering.
Do you feel like people would be surprised to hear that is going on in our community?
I think, yes, especially considering that 170 cases covered 40 zip codes. And so I think we think it only happens in certain places and it only looks a certain way. But when you actually start to realize what we see day in and day out as agencies who work with this, I think people would be not only alarmed but shocked, because it's happening everywhere. It's not just in these specific areas that one might think. During COVID, it created the perfect storm. And so we saw this huge spike there in the middle of COVID, because they're all at home, they're all isolated, and they're all really no access. Adults don't have access to them. So it's interesting now, we're watching and curious as to what's going to happen now that things, for about a year have been back to normal. Like what are we going to start seeing? I think from a trend standpoint, we are learning to identify them sooner, which is actually teaching us, okay, what's that onset of age? We know that a child can be victimized for up to 2 years before they're ever identified. Because again, they do it in secret, they don't tell anybody, they think this person loves them. There's all of these factors. But really one of the things that we want to do as an agency, but also at a community level, is how do we prevent, and what are those things that we need to deal with so that a child never has to experience this and never has to go through this. It's such a complex situation. It doesn't oftentimes involve kidnapping. It oftentimes doesn't involve things like that media portrays. Yeah. But it really involves a lot of a trafficker targeting a vulnerability in our young girls. 98% of the victims were females. So I say her and she, but obviously it can be male also. But the reality is what we're seeing is it crosses every class, race, geography, socioeconomics. It really crosses so many things and that is why it doesn't just look one certain way. One of the reasons that this is happening so often is because it happens a lot of times in the secret place, right? Online specifically. So every social media platform we've seen victimization and recruitment come from. So it's not just one app, it's not just one thing, but that's what we're seeing. It's like, especially in this generation that they're growing up, they don't know a world outside of the internet. And so they're learning normalities and they're learning ways of social interaction that really are done in the secret, right? They're telling people to kill themselves and they're bullying and all that, and you never know it's even happening. And it's similar with recruitment and grooming. Like a lot of times traffickers will groom and target online, and then they're interacting and creating a relationship that is based on a false narrative from the get-go. So when they meet them in person, and wherever they meet them, at a mall, at a restaurant, whatever, at a party, now I feel like I know this person even though they're actually a stranger. Yeah. And so their defenses are down, and their ability to understand that this could bring harm is just significantly reduced. And that's what we see more often than not. The 3 top vulnerability factors are parent separation, a history of sexual abuse, and an emotional neglect. Those, anywhere from 60 to 85% of our girls have all 3 of those. Wow. And so it really it creates this void in them that a trafficker can manipulate like that. They are sneaking out at night and performing plays or dates. Those are the terms that the girls will use. Or we've also seen where they run away for 3 or 4 days and then they come back home. And then so there's oftentimes contact with whatever nucleus is their family. Very rarely do we see where they're gone for months and months and months at a time. We do see that, but that's the point. We see the gamut. We see where they're living at home and that it's happening and their parents have no clue. We see it where they are leaving for a day or 2 and then coming back and it's happened when they were gone. And then we see where they actually leave with their trafficker and go to another state and go to another city and then return months later. I think one of the things that we tell parents is like, it's your business to know your kid's business, right? So know where they're at, know who they're hanging out with, put parental controls on their phones. There are basic practical things that we can do as parents that can help safeguard our kids from interacting with people who mean harm to them. But that's one of the best things that we can do is know their business. Who are they talking to? Who are they hanging out with? Who are those people's parents? Do they even have parents? Are they in their 20s? Are they in their 30s? And really just have an awareness and an understanding of what their kids are doing. I think especially in the community, where you work, you probably have an opportunity. Especially if you're a teacher, if you're a social worker, if you work in healthcare, if you work as a first responder, all of these people on a regular basis come in contact with victims. And what we know about victimization is they very rarely, if ever, self-identify. So the way that we identified those 170 kids is because professionals or people in their life recognized it. And so it's recognizing we have an opportunity as a community to really create safeguards for these kids who are vulnerable, to understand what it looks like and also know how to respond if we think that we see it. One of the things that we talk about a lot when it comes to what do you look for is at a physical level, oftentimes there are emotional and behavioral changes that people can look for. Are they withdrawing? Are they becoming very angry or aggressive and or super anxious and depressed? These extreme behaviors that are out of character, out of context to what has been normal. You can also look for things like branding, like physical tattoos that their traffickers have given them, whether it's a crown, whether it's a butterfly, whether it's initials. That is a very common thing that traffickers do, especially if there's multiple girls. Another thing that we can see happen all the time is that what they own seems out of context with their lifestyle. So maybe their family is struggling and there's some income deprivation that they're dealing with, but they have extreme types of gifts, shoes, purses, bags, things like that. Because one of the things that traffickers will do, especially in the beginning, in that grooming phase, is lavish gifts on them. And it makes them feel like, oh, this is going to be normal, when it actually comes with strings attached. And now you owe me these things. Other things to look for behavioral is sleeping at odd times. I've raised kids, so when you think about teenagers sleeping, it's such a strange thing anyways. But if they're out having what they call dates in the evening and at night, then they're going to be exhausted. So if they are still going to school, are they having a hard time focusing? Are they having a hard time keeping up with assignments? There's things like that, again, that are out of context to maybe what was normal last year, things of that nature. The way traffickers work is they never use real names. The girls never really know who and what is happening. And so arrest and prosecutions are really hard. I think that we also have to recognize that, think about that 170 cases just for minors. That doesn't include the adults. And it also comes down just to manpower. Are there enough detectives and are there enough officers who know what it looks like, how to respond, and can investigate to make it become a actual case that can be tried? It just takes a lot. And these cases aren't like a typical, where when you have someone who's raped, you have a clear perpetrator and a clear victim. Well, when you have a 14-year-old who says that this was my boyfriend and he didn't make me, right? Even though we know by federal law that doesn't stand, if they're not willing to testify and be a witness, can you build a case off of that? So those are those things that have obstacles that make these cases a little bit different and make them a little bit harder to prosecute and put people in jail. Our model of care here at Present Age is that we work with that child and the family. We really are about reunification and trying to maintain that family unit at all cost. So part of what we do is directly help this parent learn how to navigate this traumatic event, not only to their child, but their entire family. And also, how do I parent my child through this? Because they're dealing with a range of complex emotions and a range of feelings that they don't really have the maturity to know how to navigate. And so part of what we spend a lot of time doing is how to help that parent learn how to navigate those things with their child so that there isn't this isolation there and this fighting between the two. Because as a parent, you feel like the child has been removed, so things should get back to normal. And it just takes a really, really, really long time for that to happen. And so parents can get frustrated and impatient and not understand. And so we have to really help them navigate through that. I think oftentimes we think that it's hopeless, and it's just not. You know, I could sit and tell you story after story of girls whose lives are forever changed, and they are going to school, and they're making a difference, and they find a trade. And so I think it's also not getting stuck in the difficulty of the healing process and giving up on them. Because that's what we see happen a lot of times. We see the system fail them, and so the system says there's not anything else we can do, and so they just kind of wipe their hands of them. And the reality of it is that they just need people who are willing to walk through the mess. And most of the time they'll do the work. I was on the phone with one of our girls that we helped 10 years ago.
Wow.
Just checking in. She got a new promotion. She was super excited. And so for us, we really try to create an environment that they know that they have people that believe in them. And so we want to celebrate when you meet a goal in your life, and even if it's 10 years later. So we've been invited to baby showers and high school graduations and weddings. And so it's really been a beautiful thing to watch the progression of when they came to us in some of the darkest moments of their lives. And that now we're getting to see them thrive in life. Those victories are what drive us and keep us going, because you realize that what the work that you're doing is actually changing someone's life, which is going to change a family, which is going to change and create legacy that maybe was different before they came to us, and it makes it all worth it.